Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And this week we are discussing the Season 3 episode of Angel, Offspring. This episode originally aired November 5th, 2001, attracting approximately 4.45 million viewers. Alright, so for video games this week, what were we playing? Well, if we jump in the Wayback Machine, we would find that on this day, two pretty big games released, actually. One on the PlayStation 1 and the Game Boy Advance, which seems like a weird combo, but whatever. SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge, which I'm not familiar with that SpongeBob game.
One of them, and I don't think it was anything too crazy.
Apparently, it was one of the PlayStation's best-selling games, selling just over 1 million units.
Well, it's SpongeBob at the time, so it's not too far out of the question. But also, on the other hand,
Yeah, it was a PlayStation greatest hits. The only SpongeBob game I've ever played is the remake of Battle for Bikini Bottom, and that game is legitimately good.
that one, especially with the fixes and whatnot that they did with it, there was multiplayer that they added into it that was little questionable, but yeah, whatever you can do, I suppose.
Also, on November 5th, if you're like, I don't really want to play a SpongeBob game, and you had either a PS2, a GameCube, or an Xbox, a little game called SSX Tricky came out.
Ooh, that is the neats, though it is a case that I haven't really played it. It's mostly just the case of the theme song for it completely plays in my brain anytime it's mentioned.
The SSX games are a ton of fun.
Indeed.
And I wish they would bring them back, because I feel like we haven't had an SSX game in like forever.
Well, it's also a bit of a case of after it kind of fell out, there wasn't really any sort of market for it. Like the only one other thing that I could think of, even closely relating to it, would be Steep. And even then, that's only just partial and whatnot to it. It just seems that if it's not something really big sports related or a skateboarder game, other sports related games are just kind of one offs.
Yeah, I wish like I don't know if you remember this because you don't really play a lot of sports games, but like EA had like a separate like division called EA Big or EA Sports Big. That's what it was called. Do you remember that?
No.
No, okay. So EA Sports Big was kind of like they had like EA Sports, which made like their very like straight laced like NFL, Madden, and they did all those games.
Hmm.
And then EA Sports Big did like SSX Tricky. They did like NFL Street. They did I think it was called NBA Street. They did a bunch of like the more goofy like arcadey style ones, and I wish they'd bring stuff like that back because those were so much fun.
True. And it definitely would most likely be a market for that, but eh, I think just the case of trying to convince the actual companies being like, hey, this is a thing we want.
I feel like somebody else was working. I know the Blitz games did fairly well, but those we don't get those anymore anyway. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Hmm.
On November 7th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Jackie Chan Adventures Legend of the Dark Hand. And I think that's a spin off of the cartoon that he had at the time.
If so, yeah.
Because that was around the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just saw the box art. Yeah, it's definitely based off the cartoon. November 7th. Ooh. This was an Xbox exclusive. I don't know if I think it was for the entire run. A little game called Project Gotham Racing. Are you familiar with this game?
Really, no.
Oh, it was a racing game on the Xbox. I always wished it would have got ported to like the PS2 or somewhere. It's they do they recreate San Francisco, London, Tokyo, and New York in it. There's like 5 actual like radio stations in the game. Like it's a really cool, fun little racing game. If you enjoy racing games, that is, of course.
Yes, yes. Hmm.
Yeah, and like you can't just win the race. You also have to do like tricks and stuff because you have to like win the race and get enough like kudos points to advance. It's kind of a cool system.
I see. Like the only one thing that comes to mind is back in the day with Diddy Kong Racing, there were specific races where you needed to collect items on the racetrack before you could actually win the race.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar to that. Did you ever play? I This is a long shot, but did you ever play Need for Speed Underground 2?
Rings some bells within my head, but I think at the very most it might have just been a game or two, nothing that much.
Okay, because in that they had like they had drift races where you had to like you didn't have to win the race, you just had to score the most points in your like drifting and stuff. It's kind of like that,
Ah,
except this one it was like you have to win and score the most points. Anyway, and that's from memory, so I might be wrong slightly. Uh,
mm,
However, Nintendo has been they haven't released a major game in a little while in our timeline here. And they decided, well, it's November 11th. We need to put something out on the Game Boy Advance. So they decided to launch a little game called Golden Sun.
when it started.
Yeah, 2001. I thought it was later than that, but it's not.
It was a bit of a case that it was there. It definitely was around when the gaming and whatnot was there, but it was a case of I never picked up a Game Boy Advance around the time those games were being released.
Yeah, because there's this one, and then there's another one that comes out a few years from now, The Lost Age,
Hmm.
which I feel like, yeah, that came to us in 2003. And then there was another sequel on the DS, but I think that was in like 2010 or something. It was quite a bit later.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, the Golden Sun games were always games that I was like, oh, I want to try those.
From what I can remember and the little bits I remember hearing about it, it's definitely good. It's nothing ridiculously groundbreaking, but it's also very pretty, especially for all the pixel art it has in it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like, wow, okay. Yeah, they look beautiful. Anyway, let us move on to the box office. So, the number one grossing film in America this week, Dave. Do you have any idea what it might be?
Around that year,
We're in
November.
November. So, we're
Hmm.
a little too early for a Christmas movie, and obviously too late for the Spookums.
Well, they have surprised us before in the past, and other things I can vaguely recall. Hmm. Not as it sits, there's no immediate title that's jumping to my mind of that year.
Well, I doubt you're going to think of it. So, this week, the number one movie in America is the same as last week. It is still Monsters Inc. with just over $45.5 million at the box office.
Which, on the one hand, is good. With the case of, despite being Pixar's lowest grossing particular movie, it's still good for its base idea, and that at least leaves me happy.
Oh, it's not their lowest grossing movie. It's maybe not their best movie, but it's not their lowest grossing.
Hmm.
Because it did like $500 million.
Okay. I
Um,
suppose it needed to have at least something to continue on the franchise in the direction it did.
yeah, no, it's definitely not their lowest. I want to see if I can find what their lowest grossing film is.
I wouldn't be surprised the one other particular one I have in
Box
mind.
office. Okay, we're going by worldwide gross. Oh, I don't know if that's current. Well, we're gonna go with it. What do you think it is?
The one thing that comes to my mind would be A Bug's Life.
A Bug's Life, actually, it's definitely not at the top, but it's definitely not the lowest. So, A Bug's Life did 363 million and some change.
Hmm.
Their lowest is Turning Red with just over 19.5 million.
Okay. Again, being the most recently released and still being out there.
Yeah, and I also don't know when this was last updated, so that might be outdated.
That's true.
Uh,
Definitely with all the buzz I've seen around the movie.
yeah, and assuming that that is outdated, the next lowest one is Luca at just shy of 50 million.
Mm.
Although these don't include, actually, you know what? We can't really use those numbers because they didn't put in U.S. and Canada numbers. So the lowest one we have all the information for is Onward, which did 141 million.
None. Again, it's just the case that the most recent one is just the case that it's the lowest grossing one.
Yeah, and then like Lightyear didn't do terribly well. They haven't really had like a major one in a while, it seems. But I mean, in all fairness, when they hit, they do really well. So
That is true.
yes. Alrighty. So number one song in America this week. Any idea what it might be?
I'm just going to keep to the safe bet and say it's the same from last week.
It is still Family Affair by Mary J. Blige. I probably am pronouncing that wrong, but yes, it is the same as last time.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, apparently people like that song because it's going to stick around for a little while.
Yeah, it's kind of the case of it was there. It thankfully wasn't the supposed earworm that things are out like today because it's not stuck in my brain, thank God.
Oh, Dave, we're getting perilously close to a song you're never going to forget for the rest of your life.
I would not be surprised. Let's just keep the name out of it for now.
And this is one that we have to apologize to the world for on behalf of Canada. Have you figured out what it is yet?
There's a couple particular things in mind. I'm just not sure how severe it's gonna be.
Because I've been teasing this for like weeks at this point. Anyway, let us move on to the plot synopsis. So,
Indeed.
we start off in 1771 Rome. Angelus is trapped in the sewers by his nemesis, Holtz. This isn't a Resident Evil game, don't get too excited. Finally, having caught up with the monster who murdered his entire family, Holtz tortures Angel for a day until Darla arrives and rescues him, killing everyone but Holtz, content at having ruined his life. We cut to present day LA, where Darla arrives in town on a bus, having drained all the other passengers first. Meanwhile, Angel trains with Cordelia on her hand to hand combat skills. They discuss the hinted prophecies that the apocalypse is coming. Angel is skeptical, as he's heard a lot of similar rumors in his long life. Cordelia has decorated the dungeon with plastic flowers and talks to Angel about plans for his birthday. Fred walks in on them sparring, and after Cordy has left, tells Angel that he and Cordy are attracted to one another, an idea Angel greets with incredulity. So, no,
Yeah.
no, not gonna happen. No.
But then, of course, you put that bloody idea in his head, and uh,
Oh, there's going to be bollocks.
Angel, that little dork. Yeah.
Gunn and Wesley break into a home to steal the lost, oh god, Nizaean scroll, which has part of the apocalypse prophecy contained in it. They are caught by the owner and make a deal with him to see the prophecy. Back at the hotel, the crew talks about the prophecy of Angel being turned into a normal man. Fred does calculations to figure out when the prophecy will come to pass, and they all show that it has already begun, starting with some unspecified bad thing. At that moment, a heavily pregnant Darla walks in and tells Angel that he knocked her up. Well, that's probably that unspecified bad thing. Cordelia is very upset that Angel would sleep with Darla, especially because he swore that he would never do anything like that. Angel and Wesley confirm that what they're seeing is impossible, as vampires can't get pregnant. Cordelia acts very protective of Darla, as one does for a pregnant woman, and is very angry at Angel. Fred wonders if this is the prophesized bad event. Angel wonders if she's really pregnant, and Darla offers to let him feel the baby kicking inside of her. So she's probably knocked up there, bud.
Yeah. There's no escaping this situation thus far.
No, 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 no. The gang goes to visit the host at Caritas. When he is in the midst of rebuilding, he is currently being visited by the transuding furies, and their delight at seeing Angel further inflames Cordelia, who takes Darla to lie down in the back. They talk with the host about what the pregnancy means. They wonder if the child is an evil being from the prophecy and is destined to be bad. But Fred says, "Screw destiny," and that they can defeat anything. Cordelia starts to bond with Darla over a demonic pregnancy until Darla attacks Cordelia and starts feeding off of her. The struggling Cordelia has a vision, and Angel arrives and flings Darla across the room. Darla runs away, and Angel tells Cordelia that he'll kill Darla for what she just did. Cordy apologizes for her treatment of Angel and the fact that she let herself forget what Darla was before she remembers her vision. Darla has a never-ending hunger now that she's pregnant, and she craves young blood. Angel prepares for battle as Cordy realizes she knows where Darla must have gone. Angel catches up with Darla in an amusement park, about to feed off a toddler. The two struggle, and Angel strangles Darla to no effect because she doesn't breathe. He grabs a stake and is about to strike her down, while she begs him to kill her and make the hunger stop. But Angel stays his hand. What Darla said has finally registered. He realizes that while they don't breathe, the baby has a heartbeat and breathes. And so the baby must have a soul, which seems like a leap in logic that, okay, that's an interesting take, but whatever. He takes her back to the hotel to take care of her while taking precautions against her feeding off anyone there. Fred realizes that the thing from the prophecy is about to rise at that moment. In an underground cavern, a demon named Sojan approaches a statue, throws powder over it, and recites an incantation. After several seconds, the statue crumbles, leaving behind a crouched form. Sojan approaches him, telling that he is now in the 21st century and that he'll get to see Angela soon. The form reveals himself to be none other than Holtz, who demands to know where his sworn enemy is. So, that was certainly an episode.
Jeez.
What'd you think of this one, Dave?
It's definitely exciting and definitely interesting with all the particular things and how this episode decided to end. Like, okay, Holt is still alive. What?
How's
Just
that
the
possible?
There's most likely possibilities. An explanation would be very much appreciated, but still, it's just a case of why. Just does your revenge motor just run that deep?
Clearly, it does, and we will get an explanation in the next episode of how he is still alive and apparently a mortal human. But yes, we at least have some kind of a big bad for the season now.
Interesting.
Because
more so interesting in that sort of case.
Because normally they would have established the big bad earlier than this.
Yeah. Yeah, going from Buffy standards, I suppose.
Even in Angel, I feel like, well, season 1 didn't really have a big bad. I guess season 2 didn't really either. Yeah, I guess that's more of a Buffy thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I think the other particular thing was, I think it was a case of I should have probably seen the start of the episode kind of coming as it was, but not as with all the episodes following along with everything. I was pretty much on Cordelia's side the entire time, with Darla coming in completely pregnant and Angel being like, "Oh, take care of this," and you're like, "You lied and did say that you knocked her up." It's like, well, I didn't know what happened.
I mean, in his defense, he didn't know.
So very true, and he was most likely thinking of a couple other particular things on his mind at the time.
Well, and also, like, this is one of those things where it's like, well, this has literally never happened before as far as we know in the history of the world. So, like, how could he foresee it?
Out of all the chances it could have happened, it never did until now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, well, you can't really blame a guy for not foreseeing something that's literally never happened before. So, yeah.
Jeez, just with all the stuff that going in for the, and kid in the arcade place being found by Darla and whatnot, and just ooh,
Oh yeah, yeah. We definitely get a bit of a creepy moment there with Darlie taking the kid off, and she's about to feed on him, and then obviously Angel has to come in and save the day. But
yeah,
that was a good
quickly
moment.
saving the day, but still, nevertheless, I think more so just with the scene that they had in there and the couple people around that they used with it, it worked so well just for the fight choreography and the reaction of them seeing the battle break out and whatnot. It worked fairly nice within the scene.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really good scene. So okay, here's the issue I have. They do the whole thing where Angel's about to stake her, but then somehow he feels the baby's heartbeat, which I'm like, okay, maybe. But how does he
Yes.
then jump? I guess he could hear the heartbeat because that is something that they've established with vampires previously. So okay, he hears the heartbeat, and then he jumps to like, well, then the baby must have a soul. I'm like, I don't think that's established lore.
Yeah, the one particular note that I took off of this is Angel's big thing, especially with this and most cases, any particular life that he could save would be on its list for things. And though it's the concern of killing Darla with all the shit she's done, this is a relatively to newborn and a set life. So it's the case of, oh, I need to somewhat save this kid until I can confirm, ooh, this is bad news, sort of thing.
Yeah, no,
At least from what I kind of took from it. Again, when they brought up the case of, oh man, it has a soul, it kind of comes to the, oh right, because Angel had a soul at the time. And it's like, did you seriously go with that, writers?
I mean, I guess they need a way to kind of explain how that would kind of work because vampires in Buffy lore don't have souls. So like I guess they kind of need a way to explain like how they can be like, well, this child could like not be redeemed, but like there's a reason that Angel wants to protect the child because like, well, if the child
Hmm.
has a soul, then you know
Yeah, yeah.
they need to get there somehow. I agree, it's kind of clumsy, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so um, so for international titles for this, unfortunately, they aren't very good. There's two of them, and they're both the same. German and French both translate as the prophecy.
Uh, just
They're just kind of okay, very generic.
like even as it is with this offspring, the first thing that spots to my mind is, oh man, we're gonna have a baby birth today, but it's just the start of everything from the sounds of it. Just
Yes.
kind of relating to the baby, and even then, it's just sort of like, okay, how are you gonna go on from this?
Yeah, yeah. There's gonna be some bollocks here.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Alrighty. So if there's nothing else about this episode, next week we'll be discussing the episode Quickening.
Hmm.
Okay, so as Darla's contractions become more painful and frequent, Angel and his crew must do everything in their power to protect Darla when Linwood Morrow, another evil lawyer from Wolfram and Hart, because they need to have more, assigns the competitive Lila Morgan and Gavin Park to launch a full scale attack at the hotel to take mother and baby. Well, a vampire cult also targets Angel and the group, thinking that the impending birth will be the miracle child. Meanwhile, the vampire hunter slash killer Daniel Holtz awakens from deep freeze hibernation brought on by the non corporeal time traveling demon named Sojan, who wants him to find and kill both Angel and Darla.
Hmm.
So, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a boring episode where they're just going to sit around and talk a bunch. There's going to be no action.
They're gonna do the smart thing and actually discuss their problems like rational, normal adults.
Oh, Dave, I'm sorry, but this is not the show for that.
So true.
So, Yeah, that's going to be it for this week. I've been Paul.
And I've been Dave.